The nutrient broth tasted like wet soil and iron. Sage Lindholm raised her cup anyway, letting the warmth coat her throat before she spoke. To the 3-century peace between humans, Verdaxis, and Vasshari, long may it keep us all guessing. Xylos raised his own cup with deliberate, measured grace. His lichen fronds spread wide across his shoulders, a gesture of contentment. The moisture in the air beaded on his bark-like skin as he drank. Vela simply inclined her head. Her silver veins pulsed in a slow wave from temple to collarbone. She did not drink, she rarely did. Sage set her cup down and glanced toward the wall where Tobin Reese was leaning, arms crossed, boredom etched into every line of his stocky frame. He caught her look and raised an eyebrow. She gave a tiny shake of her head, not yet. The conference hall hummed with soft amber light. Bioluminescent panels lined the curved ceiling, casting everything in a warm glow that made the room feel older than the station itself. The air was thick, heavy with moisture and the scent of decaying leaves. Xylos always kept it that way. It reminded him of home. "We were due for something to break," Sage said. 300 years of quiet trade is a long run. The Verdaxis diplomat set his cup down with a soft click. "Peace is not a coincidence, Ambassador Lindholm. It is a structure we maintain, daily, carefully." She was about to reply when the station's network chimed, a priority override, the kind that bypassed diplomatic protocol and cut straight through every open channel. The bioluminescent panels dimmed. A voice followed, crisp, clean, the synthetic vowels of a Draxis translator module. "Attention, Verdaxis orbital control. This is the corporate vessel indomitable obligation. We have jumped into your system under Article 17 of the Interstellar Commerce Compact. We require immediate docking clearance and a quorum of your trade council." Sage's smile did not waver. She had heard that tone before. It was the voice of someone who had never been told no. The hologram bloomed in the center of the table. A Draxis male resolved from the light, tall, scales the color of charcoal. A single horn curved from his left temple, polished to a mirror shine. He wore corporate robes, deep burgundy, with the symbol of the Vor conglomerate stitched in gold across his chest. His claws clicked together once as he surveyed the room. The smell of ozone curled through the air, sharp and electrical. Xylos rose slowly. His fronds flattened against his shoulders, a sign of unease. "You are Ambassador Vor. I recognize your signature from the trade petitions. You are far from Draxis space." The Draxis executive did not acknowledge the observation. He spoke directly. "I am here to purchase the mineral rights to 3 moons in your outer belt. The orbital survey indicates trace deposits of psionic resonance crystal. My conglomerate requires exclusive access." The room went still. Vela's silver veins flickered, just once, a ripple that Sage caught from the corner of her eye. Xylos lowered his hands to the table. His voice stayed slow and patient, but his fronds twitched at the tips. "Those moons are protected under Verdaxis territorial law. The Draxis are aware of this. We do not sell extraction rights to non-aligned powers." Vor's hologram flickered. A microsecond of instability. It was the only sign of surprise he allowed. Then his posture shifted. The corner of his mouth tightened. "Territorial law is a suggestion, not a wall. I am prepared to offer a premium. Name your figure." Sage cleared her throat. She stepped forward into the hologram's field of view. "If I may offer a mediation service, Ambassador Vor. The 3 of us have a standing arbitration framework that might help." Vor turned to look at her. The movement was slow, deliberate, as if he had only just noticed she existed. "Human, you are not a factor in this negotiation. Step aside." She smiled wider. It was not a friendly smile. Behind her, Tobin muttered something under his breath. She caught the words engine signature and modified, then military grade. She kept her eyes on Vor. "I represent the Terran Diplomatic Corps. This system sits within our trilateral trade zone. That makes me a factor, I'm afraid." Vor dismissed her with a flick of his wrist. "A human factor is no factor at all. You have no military presence here. You have no economic leverage. You have nothing but words." Vela rose. Her movement was fluid, almost liquid, and her silver veins blazed brighter as she spoke. "The Dreamwalkers are stirring." The words cut through the room like a blade. Vor's hologram went still. Xylos's fronds flattened completely against his body. Sage felt something cold settle in her chest. She had assumed this was a simple trade negotiation. A corporate executive with more credits than sense, pushing against territorial law. the kind of thing she had mediated a dozen times in the last decade. But the Dreamwalkers were not a trade issue. Sage turned to Vela. The Vasshari envoy's face was unreadable, but the light beneath her skin pulsed in a rhythm that was not steady, not calm. "You're certain?" Sage asked. Vela nodded once. "The resonance harvest will wake them. It has happened before, on 3 worlds in the last century. Each time the extraction operations triggered a cascade, the Dreamwalkers do not distinguish between a mining drill and a weapon." Vor's hologram flickered again, then he straightened. His voice carried a new edge. "The resonance crystals are inert until refined. My operations will not disturb your spectral pets." "Your operations already have," Vela said. "I can feel them. The crystals are singing." The bioluminescent panels dimmed further. The moisture in the air felt heavier. Sage realized she was holding her breath. Then the station's alarm sounded. A low, pulsing tone that vibrated through the floor. Red light bled across the edges of the amber panels. Xylos turned to his console with a speed Sage had never seen from him. His fronds were rigid. "A Draxis landing craft has breached atmosphere on the largest moon." He did not look up. They did not request permission. They are deploying ground teams now. Vor's hologram remained steady. His expression did not change, but his claws clicked together once, twice. The corporate conquest had begun. Sage stepped toward the door. Tobin pushed off the wall and fell in beside her. His scarred knuckles were white. "You want me to prep the shuttle?" he asked. "Not yet," she looked back at Vor. Her smile was gone. "You just made a very large mistake, Ambassador." Vor's eyes tracked her movement. He said nothing. But the alarms kept sounding. And somewhere beyond the station's hull, the Dreamwalkers were waking. The shuttle's cargo bay smelled of burnt electronics and recycled air. Tobin Reese ran the final calibration on the void cloak, his scarred fingers trailing over the silver-gray panel. The hum buzzed in his fillings, a frequency that settled deep in the jawbone and refused to leave. Sage stood by the bulkhead, knuckles white around her datapad. Her auburn hair was plastered to her temple with sweat. The cloak's field did something to the cabin pressure, made it feel like the walls were leaning in. "Talk to me," she said. Tobin tapped the diagnostic readout. "She's holding. We get within 100 meters of that drill and the Draxis won't see us, won't hear us, won't smell us if they smell." "They don't. Then we're invisible." Vela sat cross-legged near the rear hatch. Her translucent body was dim tonight, the silver veins under her skin reduced to a faint pulse at her throat. She had not spoken since they left the station. Tobin glanced at the neural mesh crown resting on his thigh, a nest of thin filaments, cold and patient. He had worn it in Sims 100 times. Real insertion was different. Real insertion meant the burn clock started ticking the moment he synced. Sage crouched beside him, her voice dropped. "The platform has a psionic scrambler," Vela confirmed it. "I heard. The mesh won't be stable inside the field. You could lose motor control, you could lose time." Tobin picked up the crown, ran his thumb along the inner band. "Then I'll work around it." "That's not a plan. It's the one I've got." She held his gaze for a moment, then she nodded. It was not agreement, it was acknowledgement. There was a difference, and they both knew it. The shuttle dropped through a cloud of ash. The window showed nothing but gray. Fine particulate from the drilling operation, ground-up moon crust thrown into the vacuum. It scoured the hull. Tobin could hear it through the deck plates, a constant hiss like sand against glass. He flew manual. The autopilot was calibrated for clean space. This was not clean space. This was a moon being hollowed out from the inside, and the computers could not see through the haze the way a human eye could. He kept one hand on the stick and one on the void cloak engagement. The ship slipped through the ash like a ghost. The touchdown was soft, a settling, not a landing. Sage stood and pulled her helmet on. The seal compressed with a rubber hiss. Tobin did the same, then lifted the neural mesh crown and pressed it onto his head. Cold water behind the eyes. The shuttle's systems lit up in his peripheral vision. Diagnostics, life support, hull integrity. He could feel the weight of the atmosphere outside. Thin, hostile, waiting. He blinked the overlay away. They cycled the hatch. The moon had no atmosphere. The sky was black. The ground under his boots was gray and sharp, cracked, fractured by the drilling. The platform stood 300 meters away, a skeletal tower of industrial scaffolding, crowned by a coiled antenna that pulsed with a low orange light. "The harvester," They moved low and fast. Tobin carried the jammer in his left hand, a flat box with a single toggle. Sage carried the shaped charge in a padded sling across her back. A patrol rounded the far corner of the platform, 2 Draxis in pressure-modified armor. Their claws clicked against the rock. Tobin dropped to one knee. He flipped the toggle. The jammer hummed. The air around them seemed to thicken. 90 seconds. That was all they bought. 90 seconds of sensor blindness before the Draxis systems recalibrated and the jammer burned out. The patrol stopped. One of them turned its head, slow, scanning. Then it continued walking. Their helmets did not catch the reflected light from Sage's visor. Their audio pickups did not register the grind of Tobin's boots on the rock. 90 seconds. They moved. The harvester was a monument to bad intent. A massive coiled antenna, thicker than a man's torso, driven into the moon's crust like a spike. The orange light pulsed from the base. The hum was physical now. It resonated in Tobin's chest plate. Sage unslung the charge. She pressed it against the antenna's housing. The magnetic clamps engaged with a solid thunk. She looked at him. Her visor was opaque, but he knew what she was thinking. Time to go. The air shimmered between them. Tobin's hand went to the detonator. His thumb hovered over the switch. The shimmer coalesced. It became a fog, a heat haze that had no source, a low hum that vibrated in his chest, deeper than the harvester, older than the platform. Zyvan. The Dreamwalker did not have a face. It did not have a voice, but it projected images directly into the gray space behind Tobin's eyes. The drilling. The crystal veins under the moon's surface. Pain, radial splintering bright. The collective felt it. Every resonance crystal they carved from the rock sent a shock through the Dreamwalker network. Not death, worse. A slow unraveling, a wound that would not close. Zyvan projected itself between them and the charge. Sage's hand moved. Her fingers reached out. They stopped a centimeter from the shimmering fog. Don't, Tobin said. His voice sounded strange in his own ears, muffled, distant. She did not pull back. The fog did not withdraw. Sage touched it. The connection was instantaneous. She went rigid. Her hands stayed extended, the tips of her gloves barely brushing the shimmer, her body locked. Tobin could see her jaw working inside the helmet. Her eyes were open, unblinking. Zyvan flooded her with sensation. Not words, not language, raw feed. The crystal network beneath the moon, a web of psionic resonance that stretched for kilometers in every direction. The harvester had punched through the main node. The pain was not singular. It was a choir. 1,000 small agonies stacked on top of each other. And underneath it, something else. Curiosity. The Dreamwalkers had never been touched by a human before. They had felt the Vasshari, had known Vela's kind for centuries, but a human hand was different. The neural pattern was alien. The resonance was unfamiliar. Zyvan leaned into the contact. Sage's knees buckled. Tobin caught her. He pulled her hand away from the fog. The connection broke with a sensation like tearing fabric. She gasped. Her visor fogged with condensation. Sage. She blinked. Her pupils were dilated. Her breathing was ragged. They're not neutral, she said. Her voice was thin. The Dreamwalkers, they're not just present, they're aware, they're hurting. Tobin looked at the shimmering fog. It had not moved. It hung there, patient, watching. It showed me the whole network, Sage said. The integrity of it. The moon is a stabilizer. If the Draxis keep drilling, the resonance collapses. The collective fractures. Then we blow the charge. She shook her head. I will not hurt a sentient being to stop Vor. The words hung in the vacuum. There was no air to carry them, but they landed anyway. Tobin's hand was still on the detonator. The charge was still attached to the harvester. 90 seconds had passed. The jammer was dead. The Draxis patrol would be recalibrating right now. We have maybe 2 minutes before they find us, he said. I know. Then what's the play? Sage looked past him, past the fog, past the platform. She looked at the black sky and the gray rock and the wound in the moon's crust. She reached out again. This time Zyvan met her halfway. The fog thickened, wrapped around her hand, did not penetrate the suit, just held contact. Sage closed her eyes. She felt the network again, but this time she pushed back. She sent something of her own, not words, an image, a memory, a room full of diplomats, all of them strangers, all of them willing to listen. A document signed in 3 languages, a toast, a fragile thing. Peace. Zyvan absorbed it. The fog rippled, then it contracted. It pulled inward, became a point of light, bright, pulsing. Then it expanded outward in a silent wave. The orange light on the harvester flickered. The hum changed pitch. The antenna's coils went dark. Sage opened her eyes. The Dreamwalkers disconnected the harvester from the crystal network. The platform is dead. Tobin stared at her. They did that. They did that for me. The ground under them began to vibrate, a low rumble growing. Tobin turned. The platform's lights were coming back online. Emergency systems. The Draxis knew something was wrong. "We need to leave," he said. Sage looked at the shimmer where Zyvan had been. The fog was gone. The network was still there. She could feel it now. A faint pressure at the edge of her awareness. "They're not neutral," she said again. She turned and ran. Tobin followed. The ground shook harder. The ash cloud overhead was beginning to thin. The Draxis would have aerial assets in the air within 60 seconds. They reached the ridge. The shuttle was waiting. Sage stopped. She looked back at the platform, at the dark harvester, at the wound that was no longer bleeding. The Dreamwalkers were not neutral. They were a potential ally. And the moment the Draxis realized the psionic collective could be weaponized, every faction in this sector would want a piece of them. She climbed into the shuttle. The hatch sealed. The ash swallowed them again. The dream begins in a place where time has no edges. Zyvan exists as a point of awareness inside the collective. Around it swirls the memory of 1 billion Dreamwalkers, not stored in a vault or a database, but held in the living texture of shared thought. Every Dreamwalker that has ever been is still here, folded into the whole. The past and the future press against each other like adjacent rooms with a thin wall between them. Then the wall breaks. The first incision was a shock. Zyvan remembers it as the collective remembers everything simultaneously. It was a needle of cold metal driven into the moon's crust. The resonance crystals screamed. They are not rocks. They are not minerals. They are the nervous system of the Dreamwalker race, filaments of solidified consciousness that run through the stone like veins through a body. The scream took 300 years to reach full volume. Zyvan experiences it in a single compressed moment. The sensation is not pain as a human would feel it. It is a violation of sequence, a wound in the order of things. Time itself developed a crack. The collective has been bleeding through that crack ever since. Now there is a second incision. Zyvan feels it as a vibration beneath everything. Vor's forces have begun a full extraction. They are not taking samples this time. They are pulling the entire deposit. The resonance crystals are being torn from the moon's body, and every Dreamwalker in the collective feels each crystal break. The hum that surrounds Zyvan changes pitch. It becomes something closer to a sob. It looks outward. It looks at the other species. The Verdaxis feel the disturbance in their root systems. They taste the wrongness in the soil, but they do not move. They are afraid of the Draxis fleet. Their diplomats send messages. Their leaders debate procedure. The crystals keep breaking. The Vasshari feel the disturbance in their psionic fields. They know what is happening. They understand the consequences. They are still debating whether intervention would destabilize the sector. Vela is on the human shuttle and she is arguing for action, but her people are far away and they are slow. They are always slow when the decision costs something. None of them move. Zyvan turns its attention to the warm pressure. The human, Sage. Her mind is a tangle. Zyvan has never encountered anything like it. She holds loyalty to her species and to the station and to the Verdaxis and to the Vasshari and to the 2 humans on the moon with her. She holds a duty to the diplomatic accords she signed. She holds a fear of failure that lives in her chest like a second heartbeat. All of these exist at the same time. They contradict each other. She does not resolve the contradictions. She carries them. The human mind is a knot of competing obligations. It should collapse under its own weight. It does not. Sage wants to stop the drilling. She also wants to protect the humans at the station. She also wants to prevent a war. She also wants to prove that humanity's way, the messy coalition building, the alliance across fault lines, is not a weakness. Zyvan presses closer. It brushes against her thoughts the way a current brushes against a stone. She tastes like ozone and coffee. The sensation is specific. It is grounded. Zyvan has never tasted coffee, but through Sage's memory it experiences the bitter warmth, the sharp edge of caffeine, the ritual of lifting a ceramic cup to her lips. The memory carries context. A morning meeting, a stack of reports, the tired satisfaction of a deal nearly closed. The taste is not just taste, it is a life. Zyvan pulls back. The contact leaves a residue. Something has changed in the collective's perception. There is now a shape in the shared awareness that was not there before, a human-shaped impression, a space where Sage's mind touched theirs. The second incision deepens. The pain sharpens. The crystals are not just breaking now, they are being processed. The Draxis harvester is converting them into energy on site. Each crystal's death is a miniature extinction. The collective feels every one. The scream is no longer a metaphor. It is a frequency that saturates the shared mind. Zyvan makes a decision. It pushes its awareness back toward Sage. It opens a channel the way a living thing opens a wound. The vision transfers without language, the fracture, the dimensional shockwave, the cascading collapse. If the drilling continues, the collective will break. Not scatter, not retreat. Fracture. The seam between realities will tear open. The shockwave will consume the moon, the station, the Draxis fleet, the Verdaxis homeworld, the Vasshari homeworld. Everything. Sage understands. She does not flinch. She does not bargain. She asks Zyvan to guide her to a direct link with the Draxis command network. Zyvan hesitates. The cold spike. Vor is in that network. Vor is the jagged, cold thing that authorized the extraction. His mind is a closed system, a loop of calculation and acquisition. He is not evil in the way a human would define it. He is simply a creature that measures value in units of profit and sees the crystals as resources. The pain of the collective is not real to him because he cannot feel it. To enter his network, Zyvan must touch that coldness directly. Sage asks again. Her intention is clear. She does not want to harm Vor. She wants to make him understand. She believes understanding can change action. This is a human assumption so deeply embedded that Zyvan cannot find its origin in her memory. She simply believes it. The collective cannot explain why it agrees. Zyvan pushes into the Draxis network. The transition is a shock. The cold spike's environment is made of numbers and thresholds and projections. There is no shared memory here. There is only data. Each node is a transaction. Each connection is a contract. The network hums with the logic of extraction. How fast, how much, how efficiently. And at the center of it, Vor. His awareness is a tight ball of calculation. He is monitoring the extraction rate. He is calculating the profit margin. He is running scenarios for diplomatic blowback. He is reviewing the deployment of his security forces. Every thought is a variable. Every variable has a weight. He is not afraid. Zyvan presses deeper. It shows Vor the collective's pain, not as data, as experience. It transfers the sensation of the first incision, the 300-year scream, directly into his cognitive space. Vor recoils, but he does not stop the extraction. Instead, he detects the intrusion. His security protocols flag the psionic signal. His threat assessment algorithms categorize it as a hostile action. His hand moves before his mind fully processes the choice. He activates the reality fracture device. The panic is instantaneous. Zyvan feels it as a spike of cold terror that cuts through Vor's calculation loop. The terror is not about the collective. It is not about the dimensional damage. It is about loss of control. It is about the ship. It is about his career. It is about profit margins collapsing. A creature capable of ending everything because he is afraid of losing money. The device activates. The sky tears open. Zyvan experiences the rupture through every sense it possesses. The black pupil appears in the atmosphere above the moon. It is a wound in reality. Around it, a corona of violet light pulses with a frequency that makes the collective's consciousness vibrate like a struck bell. Light bleeds out, gravity warps, the station in orbit lurches. Tobin's voice cuts through the comms. His words are compressed, urgent, human-shaped sounds that Sage's mind translates into meaning. The station's gravity field is unstable. The structural integrity is failing. He is trying to compensate. Then Vela screams. The scream is not sound. It is psionic. It carries across the collective like a wave. The rift is not just here. It is also there, a mirror of violet light opening above the Vasshari homeworld. The dimensional tier is a bridge. It connects 2 points in space that should never have touched. The cascade is no longer a metaphor. It is a wound in the universe. And it is still growing. The bridge of the Verdaxis station, stroboscopic red. Emergency lighting painted the walls in alternating pulses of crimson and black. The viewport showed a wound in space that breathed, expanding and contracting like a living thing. Sage Lindholm pressed her palm against a support column and felt the vibration through bone. Low bass, felt it in her teeth. The rent was growing. Xylos stood at the central console, his lichen fronds brittle and dry. Brown patches spread across his fibrous surface like rot. Shield integrity is at 12%. The gravity waves are distorting our structural grid. I am ordering a full evacuation. His voice lacked its usual measured cadence. It was flat, fatalistic. Sage shook her head. We stop it, we don't run. There is no stopping it, Xylos said. The fracture is self-sustaining. It will consume this moon, then the station, then the Verdaxis homeworld. We have 30 minutes before the cascade becomes irreversible. Vela sat slumped against a bulkhead. The silver veins beneath her translucent skin flickered irregularly, bright pulses followed by long, dim stretches. She was whispering in her own language, a prayer or a goodbye. Tobin Reese knelt beside the resonance anchor. His hands moved with the speed of desperation. The neural mesh crown on his head still smoked at the temples. A thin line of blood ran from his right ear. It dripped onto the deck in steady, patient drops. He did not wipe it away. Sage crossed to him. Tell me you have something. I have something. Tobin's voice was rough. It buys us 10 minutes, maybe 12. I can create a dampening field that stabilizes the local resonance, but it's a patch, not a fix. 10 minutes is 10 minutes. It's a bandage on an artery. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the bridge. Vor stood within the projection, his Draxis scales pale, not the usual glossy black but a sickly gray. His single horn looked dull. He clicked his claws together 3 times fast. Cease fire, Vor said. Immediately. My extraction ships are being pulled into the gravity well. I demand you call off whatever human trickery caused this. Sage turned to face him. The cut on her cheek stung as the skin stretched. You caused this. You mined those crystals. You cracked the moon open. I did not create a dimensional rift. You created the conditions for one. Now your ships are trapped, and so are we. Vor's jaw tightened. Then we negotiate. I will surrender the mineral rights. I will pay reparations. I will. I don't want your money. Sage stepped closer to the hologram. I want your help. Your ships have adaptive plating. They can withstand the gravity waves longer than ours. You can get close to the rift and deploy a stabilizing field. That would destroy my vessels. Then you lose ships instead of lives. Vor stared at her. His claws clicked once, twice. You are asking me to sacrifice my assets. I'm asking you to stop running, Sage said. For once in your life, stay and fight something that isn't a negotiation table. The hologram flickered. Vor said nothing. Tobin stood up. He held the resonance anchor in both hands. The crystalline spike hummed at a frequency that made Sage's jaw ache. It's ready, but it needs a psionic source to interface with the field, a strong one. Everyone looked at Vela. She did not move. The silver veins under her skin had dimmed to near darkness. Her voice was a whisper. The Vasshari homeworld is already collapsing. I reached out through the collective. The fracture hit their southern continent first, then the oceans, then the sky. Sage felt the words like a blow. Vela. 42 million dead. That is the last count I received. The signal cut after that. Vela pressed her palms against her face. I cannot feel them anymore. The collective is gone. She sobbed once, a raw, broken sound barely audible over the alarms. Sage wanted to go to her. She wanted to say something that mattered, but there were no words for 42 million. The air on the bridge shimmered. Heat haze appeared near the viewport. A low hum vibrated through the room, deeper than the alarms, slower than the rift's pulse. Zyvan coalesced into a wavering column of light. It had no face, no form, just presence. Sage felt it brush against her mind. Not a violation, a question. She answered aloud, "Can you close the rift?" The hum shifted. Zyvan's voice came not through the air, but inside her skull. The rift is a dimensional wound. It cannot be staunched, it must be fed. Fed what? A stabilized psionic signature. The consciousness of a Dreamwalker given freely. The collective will lose a member, but the fracture will accept the offering and seal. Sage stared at the column of light. You're talking about a sacrifice. I am talking about choice. The Dreamwalkers do not fear death as your species measures it. We are threads in a larger tapestry. A single thread removed does not unravel the whole. But you feel it. You told me that. Every crystal you lose is agony. Yes, and this will be agony, but it will be chosen agony. The difference matters. Vor's hologram stepped forward. I have a solution. We can provide a subject from my crew, a Draxis volunteer. Your Dreamwalker can transfer its essence into a biological vessel, and the vessel can be sent into the rift. Sage turned on him. You want to force someone into that? I said volunteer. You don't have volunteers, you have indentured crew. You have debtors who owe your corporation. Sage's voice rose. You don't get to offer someone else's life, not today. Vor's claws clicked once, sharp, final. Then we all die. Maybe. Sage walked to the viewport. The rift pulsed. It was larger than it had been 5 minutes ago. The edges were ragged. They bled light in colors that had no name. She looked at the room behind her. Xylos with his brown, dying fronds. Vela curled against the wall. Tobin standing over the resonance anchor with blood pooling at his feet. Vor's cold hologram. 3 alien races, 3 different responses to extinction. The Verdaxis wanted orderly evacuation. The Vasshari grieved. The Draxis bargained. None of them knew how to connect. Sage looked at Tobin, his scarred knuckles, his quiet competence. Humanity's role was not to lead. It was not to sacrifice. It was to bridge. She turned back to Zyvan. Is there another way? The column of light shifted. Its hum grew softer. Sage pressed. You told me humans break their own rules to help strangers. You asked why. This is why, because we don't accept the first answer. We don't take the easy sacrifice. We find another path. Silence. Zyvan's voice came through again. The Dreamwalker Collective has considered your question. There is a second possibility, fraught, unstable, but not impossible. Tell me. A human neural mesh can carry psionic resonance if modified. A willing human could become a vessel. The Dreamwalker's consciousness would merge with the human's own. Together, they would enter the rift and stabilize it from within. Sage felt the calculation settle in her chest. Heavy, cold. What happens to the human? The human would not survive the dimensional interface. The merger would last long enough to seal the fracture. Then both consciousnesses would dissolve into the stabilized resonance. Tobin Reese stood up. He pulled the smoking neural mesh crown from his head. He looked at it for a long moment. Then he stepped forward. I'm the only one trained for it, he said. I know the mesh, I know the anchor, I can handle the merger. Sage shook her head. Tobin. You asked for another way, Sage, this is it. He held out the crown. I can do this, let me do this. The rift pulsed again. The station groaned. Somewhere below, metal screamed against metal. Sage looked at Tobin, at the blood from his ear, at the steady set of his jaw. She nodded. The sacrifice was set. The rift was still growing. The bridge of the Draxis flagship smelled of burning insulation and blood. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut in sequence, each one a dull thud that vibrated through the deck plates. A crack ran along the forward viewport, a jagged black line where hull metal had split and atmosphere still whistled out in a thin, high shriek. Vor gripped the command rail with both claws. His horn had chipped somewhere in the first shockwave. He could feel the splintered edge with his tongue when he breathed. The crew moved around him in fractured orbits, none of them meeting his gaze. He had not lost the bridge yet. That was the only word he would allow himself. Weapons officer, Vor said. His voice came out flat, controlled. Target the reality fracture device at the dimensional rift. Prepare to fire on my command. The weapons officer turned. A young Draxis with immature scales still soft along his jawline. His claws did not move toward the firing console. Sir, the officer said, if we fire another fracture charge into an already unstable rift, the feedback could collapse this entire system. The station, the moons, our ships, everything. Vor's claw clicked against the armrest, once, twice, a steady rhythm he could not stop. I am aware of the risk, Vor said. It is not a risk, sir. It is a certainty. The bridge went quiet. Even the whistle of escaping air seemed to pause. Vor looked at his crew and saw what he had never seen before on a Draxis vessel, fear directed not at the enemy but at him. His comm panel lit up, a single green pulse, personal channel. Sage Lindholm's face appeared on the secondary screen. Red warning lights painted her skin in alternating washes of crimson and shadow. She looked exhausted. She looked certain. Vor, she said, do not fire that weapon. You have no authority on this bridge, human. I have the only plan that works. She held up a datapad. The calculations scrolled across the screen, figures he could read even at this distance. Tobin Reese will take a shuttle into the rift. He will wear the neural mesh and guide the closure from inside. Zyvan will anchor the Dreamwalker consciousness along the fracture line. The resonance anchor will stabilize the field during the collapse. Vor stared at the numbers. They were solid. He ran them through his own tactical processor twice and found no flaw. "Your engineer will die," Vor said. "He knows. And the Dreamwalker will be consumed. It is giving itself freely." Vor's claw clicked again. The rhythm broke. He looked away from the screen and saw his crew watching him, not as a leader, as a liability, a broken executive on a dying ship with nothing left to command. Behind Sage's image, he could see movement on the station bridge. Xylos the Verdaxis was at a console, his lichen-like body folded over the controls. Vela stood beside him, her silver veins dim but steady. They were working together, the plantoid and the psionic, the diplomat and the engineer. Races that had never shared a single treaty were now sharing a single plan. His fleet was dissolving, ships breaking formation, crews evacuating. The corporate monopoly he had spent 30 years building was bleeding out into vacuum. "I will order my remaining ships to form a perimeter," Vor said. The words felt foreign in his mouth. "They will use their gravity drives to stabilize the station's orbit. It is a tactical retreat, nothing more." Sage nodded once, understood. The weapons officer stepped forward. He held a small device in his claw, a failsafe module, black and unadorned. "Sir, I am installing this on the reality fracture device. If you attempt to arm it again, the ship will self-destruct." Vor said nothing. He watched the officer cross to the weapons console and slot the module into place. The red indicator light on the device went dark. The crew exhaled. The sound was almost imperceptible, but Vor heard it. He had been overruled by a subordinate on his own bridge. He looked back at Sage's face on the screen. Her eyes were on something off-camera. The shuttle bay, probably, the final countdown. "I will remember this," Vor said. He meant it as a threat, a promise of future accounting. A reminder that he was still Vor of the Draxis, still a force that could not be dismissed. But the words came out wrong. They came out quiet. They came out like awe. Sage met his gaze through the screen. She did not flinch. "Good," she said. "Remember what it looks like when people choose to live." The feed cut. Vor stood alone on his bridge. The air smelled of burning and blood. The hull crack still whistled. His crew had returned to their stations, but they moved around him now, not through him. They had taken back their own ship. He was still the commander in name, nothing more. He turned toward the viewport. Beyond the crack in the hull, beyond the drifting wreckage of his fleet, he could see the shuttle. A small craft, unarmed, painted in human station markings. It drifted toward the rift like a leaf toward a fire. The resonance anchor glowed in Tobin Reese's hand, a single point of blue-white light against the black. And then the Dreamwalker moved. Zyvan did not appear as heat haze this time. It condensed into something Vor could see with his own eyes, a silver thread, impossibly thin, that unwound from the rift and wrapped around the shuttle. Around Tobin's skull, around the anchor in his grip. The shuttle did not slow. It entered the rift. The light swallowed it whole. Vor's claw clicked against the armrest. Once, twice, he could not stop it. The final moment was coming. The shuttle had no windows, just a single orange warning light that painted the cabin in long, slow sweeps. Tobin Reese sat in the pilot's seat, the resonance anchor humming in his gloved hand. The neural mesh crown fused to his scalp a cold metal band that throbbed with every heartbeat. Blood crusted on his lips. He didn't remember when he'd bitten through them. The shuttle shuddered. Then it stopped shuddering. The vibration cut out so completely that Tobin's inner ear told him he was falling. But the instruments said he was level. The orange light kept sweeping. He was still in a cabin. He was still holding the anchor, but nothing felt real in the way real was supposed to feel. The hull should be gone. He should be dead. Instead, he was here, suspended in a place where here had no meaning. Zyvan's voice arrived not in his ears, but behind his eyes. A warmth that did not belong to him, a presence that pressed against the edges of his own thoughts. "This is the price of connection. You will lose your body. I will lose my individuality. Together we become the seal." Tobin closed his eyes, opened them. The orange light was still there. The anchor was still humming. He had known the cost before he'd volunteered. Knowing and feeling were different rooms. He had never been good with words. He was good with machines, with systems, with things that followed rules. The rules had just changed. "What happens to you?" he asked. His voice sounded flat in the dead air. "After I'm gone, what happens to Zyvan?" A pause, the warmth in his skull shifted, curious, almost amused. Zyvan becomes a plural. Zyvan becomes we. The collective absorbs the memory of this moment but loses the self that lived it. This is acceptable. Acceptable to you. Acceptable to the collective. The individual does not decide. The survival of the pattern is the only priority. Tobin laughed. It came out wet and broken. Sounds lonely. The warmth did not answer. He looked at the resonance anchor in his hand. A crystalline spike no longer than his forearm, its surface alive with internal light that moved like liquid. The Vasshari had designed it to stabilize psionic fields. They had never tested it at full power inside a dimensional rift. They had never tested it with a Dreamwalker pouring consciousness through it. There was a first time for everything. He keyed the comm. The static was deeper than normal space, thicker, as if the rift itself did not want the signal to pass. "Sage, you there?" The static broke. Her voice came through thin and distant, like she was shouting from the bottom of a well. "Tobin, the station is evacuating. The last shuttles are clear. We're pulling back to the Draxis cruiser." "Good," he set the anchor on the console. It pulsed once, a beat of silver light that echoed through the cabin. "That's good. I need you to know something." Her voice cracked. The static almost swallowed it. "I love you. I never said it. I should have said it 100 times." Tobin touched his earlobe, a habit he'd picked up from watching her do it. "I know. You're being recorded. The comm relay is feeding your telemetry to the cruiser. If you want to say something. Tell them I was right." He grinned. It hurt. "Tell them the neural mesh worked. Tell them it wasn't a waste." "Tobin, I gotta go. The anchor's cycling." A lie, the anchor was steady, but he had run out of time for goodbyes. The warmth in his skull was growing, spreading, pressing against the walls of his identity like a tide against a dam. He let go of the control yoke. The shuttle drifted. No thrusters fired, no stabilizers corrected. It simply moved, pulled by currents that had no name, into the center of the rift. The orange light flickered. Then the walls of reality peeled away. Tobin saw it all at once, 1,000 versions of himself, of Earth, of the station, all existing in the same moment. He saw himself as a child, building a radio from scrap parts the first time a voice had come through the speakers. He saw himself on Verdaxis station, whistling tunelessly while he calibrated a dampening field. He saw himself older, grayer, dead in a bed with someone holding his hand. The someone was Sage. None of it was real, all of it was real. The rift showed him every path he could have walked, every choice he had not made, every life he had not lived. And it showed him Zyvan. The Dreamwalker's true shape was not a shimmer of heat or a hum in the chest. It was a web, a vast, interconnected lattice of awareness that spanned light years. Zyvan was not one point in that web. Zyvan was a knot, a concentration, a thread that had been pulled tight into a local pattern. Tobin saw the thread. He saw where it connected. He saw that when the seal happened, the thread would not break. It would simply unknot. The awareness would flow back into the whole. Zyvan would become a verb, a process, a memory held by billions of other minds. And Tobin would become part of it. The neural mesh overloaded. It happened not as a failure, but as an expansion. The cold water sensation behind his eyes became a flood, became an ocean, became a universe of sensation that his brain had never been designed to process. He felt the rift. He felt the crystal veins of the moon below. He felt the Draxis ship, the evacuation shuttles, the station's dying power core. He felt Sage's hand shaking as she held the comm unit. He felt her grief before she felt it herself, a cold weight settling into her chest. He grabbed the resonance anchor. The spike flared. The hum became a chord, a harmony of frequencies that vibrated through his bones and his teeth and his thoughts. The Dreamwalker's energy funneled through him, through the anchor, into a focused beam that struck the center of the rift. The crack in time began to seal. Tobin felt it happening. He felt Zyvan pouring into the beam, thread by thread, knot by knot. The presence in his skull was fading, but it was also growing, becoming something larger than one mind, larger than one species, larger than the small human body that held it. The last thing Tobin felt with his own nerves was the cold of the metal seat against his neck. A single point of physical sensation, a tiny anchor in a body that was no longer his. Then he let go. His thoughts spread outward. They dissolved into Zyvan's collective. They merged with the web, with the lattice, with the ancient awareness that had watched stars form and die and form again. He felt the Dreamwalkers age. He felt their loneliness. He felt their fascination with the brief, bright humans who burned so hot and died so fast and kept choosing each other anyway. He understood. This was not a death. This was a translation. He was not ceasing to exist. He was becoming something that could exist in a place where bodies could not go. He was becoming a bridge. The last word he formed, inside the shape that had been his mind, was not a word at all. It was a name. Sage. Then the rift contracted. The walls of reality snapped back into place. The crack in time closed with a sound that no one heard because there was no air to carry it. The shuttle was gone. On the station, the rift was gone. The sky was empty. Sage Lindholm stood on the Draxis cruiser's observation deck, the comm unit still in her hand, her fingers white-knuckled around the casing. She whispered his name, and somewhere in the vast web of the Dreamwalker collective, something shifted, something warmed. Something that had been alien and cold and ancient now carried the echo of a human voice. The coalition had survived, but the cost was branded into every mind that remembered Tobin Reese, every mind that knew what he had done, every mind that now carried a piece of him, even if they did not yet understand. The bioluminescent panels cast a warm, golden light across the table. Sage Lindholm set the treaty down and smoothed the first page with her palm. Her hands trembled slightly, a new thing, that tremor, a gift from the rift's resonance bleed. She pressed them flat against the paper until they stilled. Vor sat across from her in a chair designed for a human, his bulk pressed against the armrests, his scales a dull gray now, not the glossy black of command. The horn on his left temple had regrown but crooked, a permanent reminder of the flagship's buckling hull. He did not look at her. He looked at the document. The Corporate Exploitation Prohibition Accord, Sage said. Article 1 through 47, reparations to the Verdaxis moons for the next century. Neutral Monitoring Council hosted here on the station. All existing Draxis extraction rights revoked. Vor's claw clicked against the table, a single deliberate sound. I can read, he said. Xylos shifted on Sage's left. His lichen had regained its deep green color, but his movements were slower now, more deliberate, as if every gesture had to be measured twice. The faint smell of damp earth rose from his form. Vela sat on Sage's right, her silver veins pulsing steady and slow, but she carried a new stillness in her shoulders. Something had settled in her during the collapse of her homeworld, something that did not want to be disturbed. Vor picked up the stylus. His claw hovered over the signature line. Your people will enforce this, he said. It was not a question. We will, Sage said. Why? She met his eyes. Because we wrote it, because we mean it. He signed, the stylus scratched across the paper, and the sound was small for something that would reshape a sector. He set the stylus down and leaned back. His chair creaked. The corporation is bankrupt, he said flatly. My homeworld has lost 43 ships. The board has been dissolved. There is nothing left to fight with. Sade did not say she was sorry. He would not believe her, and she was not sure she meant it anyway. She nodded once. The door opened. A representative from the Illith entered first, insectoid, chitinous, its mandibles clicking in a rhythm that took Sage a moment to parse as agitation. Behind it drifted a windborne, a column of swirling gas held in a containment field that shimmered pale blue. The gas inside rippled and coiled, forming shapes that never quite resolved. We were not contacted, the Illith said. Its voice buzzed from a translator unit on its thorax. The crisis reached our border. We had no context, no warning, nothing. Sage stood. She had expected this. You're right, she said. You should have been informed. The Oversight Council will include Illith and Windborne representatives, effective immediately. The Illith's mandibles stopped clicking. It tilted its head, a gesture Sage had learned meant confusion. You concede this without negotiation. Yes. The Windborne's containment field hummed. The gas inside pulsed, then stilled. A voice emerged from the field, thin, reedy, like wind through a crack. We accept. Sage gestured to the empty chairs at the table. Sit, we have a lot of work to do. The Illith sat. The Windborne drifted to its chair, the containment field settling like a patient balloon. The table was full now, 7 races, 1 document. Vela rose. Her silver veins brightened as she moved around the table and stopped beside Sage. Her voice was low, meant only for human ears. There is one more article. Sage looked at the treaty. She knew the words by heart. Article 48, a human liaison position to the Dreamwalker Collective. The role was defined, the protocols drafted, the communication channels established. The slot was empty. No name had been submitted. No candidate had volunteered. The treaty did not require one, but the silence where the name should go felt heavier than any signature. "It can wait," Sage said. "It will not," Vela said. "The Dreamwalkers have accepted the new echo into their collective. The human fragment sits within them now. They feel it. They do not understand it." Sage turned to face her fully. "What don't they understand?" Vela's silver veins dimmed slightly. "They do not understand why humans give up so much for strangers. They have watched your species for 300 years. You fight each other. You compete. You hoard and exploit and destroy. And then you turn around and give everything to someone you have never met." The table had gone quiet. Sage felt the weight of 7 different attention systems. Compound eyes, pressure sensors, psionic fields, thermal imaging, all focused on her. She took a breath. "Tell them this," she said. "A stranger is just a friend we haven't failed yet." The room held still. The Windborn's gas body rippled. A sound emerged from the containment field, not words, but a vibration that climbed and fell. It took Sage a moment to recognize it. Laughter. The Illith's mandibles clicked once, twice. A Verdaxis aide near the wall made a sound like rustling leaves. Xylos placed a slow hand on the table and nodded. Vela's silver veins flared bright, then settled to a steady pulse. She said nothing. She did not need to. Vor stood, his claws scraped the table as he pushed his chair back. He walked around the long curve of the conference surface until he stood in front of Sage. He extended his clawed hand. She looked at it. Draxis did not touch other species. Draxis did not offer gestures of trust. Draxis did not have a word for ally. She took his hand. His grip was firm and rough and warm. He held it for 3 seconds. Then he let go and stepped back. "We are learning," he said. Sage nodded. Her throat was tight. The bioluminescent panels flickered once, a minor fluctuation in the repaired star outside. Through the viewport, light poured in, and for the first time in weeks it looked clean. Not the sick amber of emergency lighting. The real gold of a star doing what stars did. Sage looked at the empty seat at the table, the one at the far end near the window, the one she had saved for Tobin. She closed the treaty. She pressed her palm to the cover. The paper was warm from her hand. The door opened. A shimmer of heat haze flickered in the corridor. A low hum vibrated through the floor, through the table, through Sage's chest. The air bent in a column of wavering light, familiar, patient waiting. Zyvan, or what remained of it. The Dreamwalker collective had not left the station. It had not left Sage. The human fragment inside it, Tobin's fragment, pulsed at the edge of her awareness like a half-remembered dream. She did not know what it wanted. She did not know if it could want anything anymore. But the shimmer did not fade. The accord was signed. The reparations were set. The council was seated. The galaxy had tilted on its axis and settled into a new orbit. Sage picked up the treaty and walked toward the door. The heat haze did not move. It waited for her. She stopped in the threshold and looked back at the table, at the Illith and the Windborn and the Verdaxis and the Vasshari and the Draxis, all of them still seated, all of them watching her. She did not know what came next. But the shimmer in the corridor did not fade. And the door did not close.